What happens when a healer defies an ancient mating law to save a dying stranger and accidentally binds herself to the most dangerous alpha king alive? Tonight, you'll witness a woman who chose compassion over survival, triggered a bond that could kill her, and shattered every rule her world was built on. This is a story of forbidden power, impossible love, and a choice that will either crown her as queen or destroy her completely. Stay until the very end to see how she rewrites her fate. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button. Let's begin. The torches burned like angry eyes in the village square. Kalyra pressed her back against the rough bark of the tree line, her breath shallow, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. From the shadows, she watched them gather, dozens of women in ceremonial white, their faces painted with red ochre, their wrists bound with braided rope. The claiming ceremony. The night when unmated females were paraded before the pack's strongest males like livestock at market. Her younger sister Mira should have been among them, but Mira was only 16. Too young. Too fragile. And Kalyra had made sure she wasn't there. "You're insane," Mira had whispered earlier that evening, clutching Kalyra's hands. "If they find out you hid me, they won't." Kalyra had smoothed her sister's dark hair, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "I'll tell them you're sick. Just stay in the cellar until dawn. Don't make a sound." Now as the drums began their primal rhythm, Kalyra felt the weight of that lie settle over her like a noose. She should be there. She was 23, well past the age of claiming. Her absence would be noticed, questioned, punished. But she didn't move. The village elder Torvok stepped into the firelight. He was a massive man, scarred and gray-haired, his authority absolute. His voice cut through the night like a blade. "Tonight, we honor the old laws," he bellowed. "The strong claim the worthy, the weak submit or are cast out. This is the way of the pack. This is survival." A roar of approval rose from the gathered males. Kalyra's stomach turned. She had grown up with these laws, had seen her own mother claimed by a man who beat her until she stopped speaking altogether, had watched friends disappear into forced bonds, their light slowly extinguished. The pack called it tradition. Kalyra called it cruelty dressed in ritual, and she wanted no part of it. Slowly, carefully, she turned and slipped deeper into the forest. The trees closed around her like a living wall, their branches black against the moonlit sky. The sounds of the ceremony faded. Drums, shouting, the high-pitched ululation of women who had already been marked. Out here, the world was different, quieter, dangerous in a way that felt honest. Kalyra had always preferred the wild to the village. As a healer, she'd spent years learning the language of roots and leaves, the way certain plants could knit bone or stop bleeding or ease a fever. But she'd also learned things she wasn't supposed to know, things her grandmother had whispered to her before she died. "You have a gift, child, a dangerous one. Never let them see it, never let them know." Kalyra's gift wasn't just knowledge, it was power. The ability to draw poison from a wound with her bare hands, to slow a heartbeat or speed it, to feel the life force of another person like heat against her skin. It was forbidden, unnatural, the kind of power that got women burned. So she hid it, used only her herbs and bandages, kept her hands to herself. Until tonight. She was a mile from the village when she heard it, a sound that didn't belong. A low, ragged groan, barely human. Kalyra froze, every instinct screaming at her to run. But her healer's training won out. She moved toward the sound, stepping carefully over roots and stones. And then she saw him. He was slumped against a massive oak tree, half hidden in shadow. Even in the dim light, she could see the blood, dark and thick, soaking through his torn clothing. His breathing was labored, each exhale a wet rattle that made her chest tighten. He was dying. Kalyra's first thought was to leave, to turn around and pretend she'd never seen him. This wasn't her problem. She had enough trouble already. But then he moved. His head lifted slightly, and for just a moment, their eyes met. His were amber, bright and wild, like a wolf's. Even through the haze of pain, there was something in that gaze, something fierce, something that refused to yield. And Kalyra felt it, a pull. Not physical, deeper than that, like a string tied around her ribs, tugging her forward. "Damn it," she whispered. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands already moving to assess the damage. 3 deep gashes across his chest, a puncture wound in his side. And something else. Something wrong. The edges of his wounds were black, the flesh around them swollen and hot. Poison. Not just any poison. This was dark magic, the kind that killed slowly, painfully, shutting down the body piece by piece. She'd seen it once before, years ago, when a rival pack had sent an assassin. The man had been dead within hours. Kaelira's breath hitched. Who did this to you? The stranger's lips moved, but no sound came out. His eyes were glazing over. He was slipping away. She should leave, right now, before it was too late. Instead, she pressed her palms to his chest. The heat hit her immediately, a searing, unnatural burn that made her gasp. She could feel the poison spreading through him like black roots, choking out his life force. If she tried to draw it out, it would flood into her. It could kill her too. But if she didn't, he'd be dead in minutes. Kaelira closed her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered. To him, to herself, to the ancestors who would curse her for what she was about to do. And then she pulled. The poison came reluctantly, like barbed wire dragging through her veins. She bit down on a scream, her entire body going rigid as the darkness flooded into her. It was agony, pure, white-hot agony, but she didn't let go. She couldn't, not until it was out of him. Seconds stretched into eternity. Her vision blurred, her lungs burned. She could feel her own heartbeat stuttering, struggling to keep rhythm. And then, suddenly, it was over. The poison dissipated, absorbed into her own life force and neutralized. She collapsed forward, gasping, her hands still pressed to his chest. Beneath her palms, his heartbeat was stronger, steady. She'd done it. But the cost was immediate. The moment her power touched him, really touched him, deeper than healing, something inside him responded. She felt it like a shockwave, a surge of raw energy that slammed into her and locked tight. A bond, primal, instinctive, unbreakable. No. Kaelira jerked her hands back, but it was too late. The connection was already there, thrumming between them like a living thing. She could feel his presence now, even without touching him. Could sense his pain, his strength, his eyes snapped open. And the world tilted. He moved faster than she could process. One moment he was dying, the next he had her pinned against the tree, his hand around her throat, not squeezing, but holding her in place. His amber eyes were blazing now, fully alert, and there was something in them that made her blood run cold. Recognition. "You," he rasped. His voice was rough, broken, but laced with something dangerous. "What did you do?" Kaelira's pulse hammered against his palm. "I saved your life. You bound yourself to me." Her stomach dropped. "I didn't—" "Yes, you did." His grip tightened, just slightly. Not enough to hurt, just enough to make his point. "I can feel you, inside my head, my chest, everywhere." Kaelira swallowed hard. "I was trying to heal you, that's all." Healing doesn't create a bond. His gaze bore into hers, searching, dissecting. "What are you?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Because she didn't fully know herself. For a long moment, they stayed like that, locked together, breathing in sync, the bond pulsing between them like a second heartbeat. And then, slowly, he released her. Kaelira staggered back, her legs shaking. "Who are you?" He straightened, and for the first time she got a full look at him. Tall, broad-shouldered, built like a warrior, all hard muscle and barely contained power. His hair was dark, streaked with silver at the temples. His face was carved from stone, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. But it was his presence that overwhelmed her. Even wounded, even weakened, he radiated authority. The kind of authority that didn't ask for obedience, it demanded it. "My name is Draven," he said quietly, "and you just tied yourself to the most dangerous man alive." Before she could respond, voices echoed through the trees. Torches, shouting, the search party. Kaelira's heart lurched. "They're looking for me." Draven's expression hardened. "Then we need to move." "We?" She shook her head. "No, I can't. You already did." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. "The bond is incomplete, but it's there. If you go back to them now, they'll sense it. They'll know what you are, what you did. And if I stay with you, you'll be hunted." Kaelira laughed bitterly. "I'm already hunted." The voices were getting closer. She could hear Torvok's deep bellow cutting through the night. "Find her! The healer thinks she can defy the laws. Bring her back in chains if you have to." Draven's jaw tightened. "Can you run?" Kalira looked at him, this stranger, this dangerous, impossible man who had just become tangled in her fate. Every rational part of her screamed to leave, to run back to the village and beg forgiveness. But she thought of Mira, hidden in the cellar, of her mother's broken eyes, of the women in white, ropes around their wrists, and she thought of the bond thrumming beneath her ribs. Terrifying, undeniable, real. Yes, she whispered. I can run. Draven's hand closed around hers, warm, rough, solid. Then run. And they did. They moved through the forest like ghosts, Draven's instincts guiding them deeper into the wild. Kalira's lungs burned, her legs screaming in protest. But she didn't slow down. Behind them, the search party crashed through the underbrush, their torches flickering like fireflies. This way, Draven muttered, pulling her left toward a narrow game trail. How do you know where to go? I've hunted these woods before. That single sentence sent a chill down her spine. Hunted, not traveled, not explored. Hunted. What kind of man was she running with? They reached a rocky outcrop and Draven pulled her behind it, pressing them both into the shadows. His body was tense against hers, every muscle coiled and ready. Kalira could feel his heartbeat, strong, steady, echoing through the bond. The search party passed within 20 feet. She held her breath, her fingers digging into Draven's arm. Torvak's voice rang out, sharp and furious. She can't have gone far. Spread out. And if you find the healer, bring her to me personally. I'll deal with her myself. The words were a promise, a threat. Kalira closed her eyes, fighting down the surge of fear. She'd known Torvak her entire life, had healed his wounds, treated his fevers, but she'd also seen what he did to those who defied him, the scars he left, the bones he broke. If he caught her now, he wouldn't just punish her, he'd make an example of her. The search party moved on, their voices fading into the distance. Draven waited another full minute before he released her. They'll come back, he said quietly. We need to keep moving. Kalira nodded, too breathless to argue. They traveled through the night, following paths only Draven seemed to see. Kalira's feet ached, her muscles screaming, but she pushed through it. The bond kept her anchored. Every time she faltered, she felt Draven's presence steadying her, pulling her forward. It was strange, intimate, terrifying. By the time dawn broke, they'd reached a small clearing near a stream. Draven finally stopped, his shoulders dropping slightly. We'll rest here, he said, just for a few hours. Kalira collapsed onto a fallen log, her entire body trembling. Where are we going? Away from them. That's not an answer. Draven turned to face her, and for the first time she saw exhaustion in his eyes. Real, bone-deep exhaustion. I don't know yet. Kalira laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Perfect. I've bound myself to a man who has no plan. I had a plan. His voice was low, rough. It didn't involve you. Trust me, this wasn't my plan either. They stared at each other across the clearing. The bond hummed between them, a constant reminder of what they'd become. Kalira could feel his frustration, his wariness, his guilt? She frowned. Why do you feel guilty? Draven's expression shuddered. Stay out of my head. I'm not trying to be in your head. I can just feel things. Then stop. I don't know how. The words hung in the air, raw and honest. Kalira's hands clenched into fists. I didn't ask for this. I was trying to help you. I know. Draven's voice softened just slightly. And you did. You saved my life. But you also bound yourself to something you don't understand. Then explain it to me. He was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, he sat down on the opposite log, his elbows resting on his knees. The bond is primal. It's what happens when two people, two powerful people, connect on a level deeper than physical. It's rare, dangerous, and once it starts, it doesn't stop. Kalira's throat tightened. What does that mean? It means we're tied together now, for better or worse. I can feel you, just like you can feel me, and the longer we're apart, the worse it gets. So we're stuck together, until one of us dies, yes. The weight of those words settled over her like a shroud. Kalira pressed a hand to her chest where the bond pulsed beneath her ribs. I don't even know you. You know enough. Do I? She looked at him, really looked at him. You said you're dangerous. What does that mean? Are you a criminal, an outcast? Draven's jaw tightened. I'm a king. The world stopped. Kaelira blinked, certain she'd misheard. What? I'm the Alpha King of the Northern Territories. His voice was flat, emotionless. Or I was, before someone tried to kill me. Her mind reeled. You're the king? Was that not obvious? No. She stood abruptly, her pulse racing. You were bleeding out in the forest. You looked like a dead man? Yes. Draven's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. That was the point. Kaelira stared at him, her thoughts spinning. The Alpha King. She'd heard stories, whispers of a ruler so powerful, so ruthless, that entire packs bowed before him without question. A man who had united the Northern Territories through sheer force of will. A legend, and she'd just bound herself to him. Oh gods, she whispered. Oh gods, what did I do? You saved my life, Draven said again, quieter this time. And you paid a price for it. What price? He met her eyes, and in them she saw something she hadn't expected. Regret. Your freedom, he said simply. Because now, whether you like it or not, you're mine. Kaelira didn't sleep. She sat by the stream, her knees pulled to her chest, watching the water flow past. Draven had stretched out on the ground nearby, his breathing deep and even. Apparently even Alpha Kings needed rest, but Kaelira's mind wouldn't stop racing. You're mine. The words echoed in her skull, over and over. Not a threat, not a promise, just a statement of fact. And the worst part? She could feel the truth of it. The bond wasn't just a connection. It was a claim, a mark, something that went deeper than skin, deeper than blood. She was his, and he was hers. The thought should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But beneath the fear there was something else, something she didn't want to name, relief, because for the first time in her life she wasn't alone. Kaelira shook her head, shoving the thought away. This was insane. She didn't know this man, didn't trust him. And yet, the bond insisted otherwise. It whispered that he was safe, that he was hers. She hated it. You should rest. Draven's voice made her jump. She turned to find him sitting up, watching her with those unsettling amber eyes. I'm fine, she lied. You're exhausted. So are you. I'm used to it, Kaelira huffed. Must be nice being used to running for your life. It's not. His tone was matter-of-fact. But it's necessary. She turned back to the stream, her fingers tracing idle patterns in the dirt. Why did someone try to kill you? Politics. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Draven stood, moving to sit beside her. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. There are people who want my throne, who think they can take it. Can they? Not while I'm alive. Kaelira glanced at him. You sound very sure of that. I am. Even poisoned? Even weakened? Draven's mouth curved into a grim smile. Even then. There was something in his voice, a quiet, absolute confidence that made her believe him. This was a man who had fought his way to power and held it with an iron grip, a man who didn't know how to lose. And she'd bound herself to him. Kaelira rubbed her temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. What happens now? Now we survive. That's not a plan. It's the best I have. Great, she laughed bitterly. I ran away from a terrible future and somehow ended up in an even worse one. Draven was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, he said, I'm sorry. Kaelira's head snapped up. What? I'm sorry. He didn't look at her. You didn't deserve this. Any of this. The words hit her like a physical blow because they were true. She hadn't deserved this, hadn't asked for it, and yet here she was. But instead of anger, all she felt was a strange hollow ache. Neither did you, she whispered. Draven's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat the bond flared between them, bright and fierce and undeniable. Kaelira's breath caught. She could feel everything he was feeling, exhaustion, pain, guilt, and beneath it all, something deeper, something he was fighting to contain, protectiveness. He was already protecting her, even now, even when it cost him. We should move, Draven said abruptly, breaking the moment. They'll widen the search at first light. Kaelira nodded, forcing herself to stand. Her legs protested, but she ignored them. Where to? North. Why north? Because that's where my people are. Your people? Her heart sank. You mean the pack? The court? Yes. You want to take me there? To them? Draven's expression hardened. I want to keep you alive. And the only way to do that is to get you somewhere safe. Safe? Kalira laughed. You just told me you have enemies trying to kill you. How is your court safe? Because no one will touch you there. His voice dropped, lethal and cold. Not if they value their lives. The certainty in his words should have been comforting. Instead, it sent a chill down her spine. Because Draven wasn't just offering protection, he was claiming her, publicly, irrevocably. And once they reached his court, there would be no going back. Kalira looked at him, this stranger, this king, this impossible man who had become her fate, and made a choice. All right, she said quietly. Let's go north. Draven's eyes flashed with something that might have been relief, or approval, or both. Stay close, he said, and if anything happens, you run. Understand? What about you? I'll handle it. That's not Kalira. He stepped closer, his hand lifting to cup her jaw. The touch was gentle, but the intensity in his gaze was anything but. If it comes down to you or me, you run. That's an order. Her pulse hammered beneath his fingers. I don't take orders from you. You will if you want to survive. I didn't survive this long by running. Then start now. His thumb brushed her cheek, achingly soft. Please. The word, please, broke something inside her, because it wasn't a command, it was a plea. And Kalira realized with a jolt that Draven was terrified. Not for himself, for her. Okay, she whispered. I'll run. Good. He released her, stepping back, and the bond settled between them like a promise. They moved deeper into the forest, heading north, leaving behind everything Kalira had ever known. Her village, her sister, her old life. And with every step the bond grew stronger. By midday they'd covered miles. Kalira's feet were blistered, her body aching, but she didn't complain. Draven moved like a force of nature, silent, focused, unstoppable. And somehow, the bond kept her going. Every time she stumbled, she felt his strength flowing into her, steadying her. It was addictive, dangerous. They stopped only once, near a small spring. Kalira drank deeply, her hands shaking. Draven crouched beside her, his expression unreadable. You're doing well, he said quietly. I'm dying. You're surviving. There's a difference? Always. Kalira looked at him, really looked at him. Beneath the hard edges, the scars, the authority, there was something else, something that reminded her of herself. Loneliness. Do you ever get tired? She asked softly. Of what? Being strong. Draven's jaw tightened. Every day. The honesty in his voice gutted her, because she understood. She'd spent her entire life being strong, for her sister, for her patients, for everyone who needed her, and it was exhausting. But now, with Draven, she didn't have to carry it alone. The thought terrified and comforted her in equal measure. They were about to move on when Draven suddenly froze. His head snapped up, his entire body going rigid. What? Quiet. Kalira's heart lurched. She listened, straining to hear whatever he'd sensed, and then she caught it, a low, distant sound. Footsteps. Many of them. They found us, Draven said grimly. How? Doesn't matter. He grabbed her hand, pulling her behind a thick cluster of trees. Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound. What are you going to do? What I have to. Before she could protest, Draven stepped into the clearing, and Kalira watched, her breath frozen in her lungs, as a dozen armed men emerged from the forest. They were soldiers, elite ones, judging by their armor. And at their head was a man Kalira recognized, Torvak. Her blood turned to ice. Torvak's eyes locked onto Draven, and a slow, vicious smile spread across his face. Well, well, the healer has interesting taste. Draven said nothing. He simply stood there, calm and lethal, radiating the kind of authority that made grown men hesitate. But Torvak wasn't intimidated. You have something that belongs to us, stranger. Hand her over and we'll let you live. No. The word was flat, final. Torvak's smile widened. I was hoping you'd say that. He gestured, and the soldiers moved forward, weapons drawn. And Draven, wounded, weakened, outnumbered, smiled. It was the smile of a predator. Big mistake, Ito, he said softly. And then he moved. Kalira had never seen anything like it. Draven didn't fight like a man. He fought like a force of nature. Fast, brutal, efficient. Within seconds, 3 soldiers were on the ground, unconscious or worse. The rest hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. But Torvok didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, a blade flashing in his hand. Draven caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting it with a sickening crack. Torvok screamed, dropping the weapon. Draven slammed him to the ground, his hand around the older man's throat. "She's mine," Draven said quietly. "And if you ever come near her again, I'll kill you." Torvok's face turned purple. He clawed at Draven's hand, gasping for air. And then, just as suddenly, Draven released him. Torvok collapsed, coughing and wheezing. Draven straightened, his gaze sweeping over the remaining soldiers. "Go," he said, "before I change my mind." They ran, all of them. Even Torvok, stumbling and cursing, disappeared into the trees. Kalira stepped out from her hiding place, her legs shaking. "You let him go. I should have killed him." Draven's voice was cold, distant. "But I didn't want you to see that. I've seen death before. Not like this." He was right. The violence she'd just witnessed, the raw, controlled brutality, was nothing like the death she'd seen in her work. This was different. This was power, and it terrified her, but it also made her feel safe. Draven turned to her, and his expression softened. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Good." He reached for her hand, his fingers warm against hers. "We need to keep moving. They'll be back with reinforcements." Kalira nodded, unable to speak, because as they walked away hand in hand, she realized something that changed everything. She trusted him. This stranger, this king, this dangerous, impossible man. She trusted him with her life, and that trust, more than anything, was what would bind them together, for better or worse, forever. They walked through the night without stopping. Kalira's entire body screamed for rest, but Draven's pace never slowed. He moved through the darkness like he could see in the black, his hand still wrapped around hers, pulling her forward. The bond pulsed between them with every step, stronger now, more insistent. She could feel his determination, his focus, and beneath it all a thread of something she didn't want to name. Fear. Not for himself, never for himself. For her. "How much further?" she managed, her voice hoarse. "Another hour, maybe 2. Draven glanced back at her, his amber eyes catching the moonlight. "Can you make it?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." Despite everything, Kalira almost smiled. There was something darkly honest about him. No false comfort, no empty reassurances, just brutal truth. She could respect that. They crossed into rougher terrain, rocky slopes and narrow paths that hugged the mountainside. Below them, the forest stretched endlessly, a sea of black broken only by the silver thread of the river. Kalira tried not to look down. Heights had never bothered her before, but exhaustion was making her clumsy, and one wrong step would send her tumbling into nothing. Draven's grip on her hand tightened. "Focus on me, not the drop." "Easy for you to say." "I've fallen before. It's not as bad as you think." "You're joking." "I wish I was." This time she did smile. Just a little. They reached a small cave carved into the mountainside just as dawn began to break. Draven pulled her inside, and Kalira collapsed against the stone wall, her legs finally giving out. Her lungs burned. Her feet were bleeding through her boots. Every muscle felt like it had been beaten with a hammer. "Rest," Draven said, moving to the cave entrance. "I'll keep watch." Kalira wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he needed rest just as much as she did. But the words wouldn't come. She was too tired, too drained. Within minutes, she was asleep. She woke to the sensation of heat, not the pleasant warmth of a fire. This was different, deeper, hotter, like fever spreading through her veins. Kalira's eyes snapped open, and she gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. The bond. It was burning. "Draven!" He was beside her in an instant, his hands gripping her shoulders. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. It feels... It's too hot." Draven's expression darkened. He pressed his palm to her forehead, and she felt the bond flare in response, connecting them even more intensely. His jaw tightened. "Damn it!" "What? What's happening?" "The bond is trying to complete itself." His voice was grim. I should have expected this. Kaelira's pulse raced. Complete itself? What does that mean? Draven pulled his hand back, putting distance between them. It means the bond isn't finished. What we have now is only partial, and partial bonds are unstable. Unstable how? They burn, they pull, they drive people insane if left incomplete. The heat in her chest flared again, and Kaelira bit back a whimper. How do we stop it? Draven's silence was answer enough. There's no way to stop it, is there? Her voice came out sharper than she intended. We either complete it, or it tears you apart from the inside. Kaelira's breath hitched. Just me? You're human, or mostly human. You're not built to handle this kind of power. Draven's eyes were hard, unreadable. I can survive an incomplete bond. You can't. The unfairness of it hit her like a slap. She was the one who'd saved him, the one who'd risked everything, and now she was paying the price while he walked away unscathed. So what do we do? She asked quietly. We complete it. And if I don't want to? Draven's expression didn't change. Then you die. The words hung between them, cold and final. Kaelira wanted to scream, to rage against the unfairness of it all. But what good would it do? The bond didn't care about fairness, it only cared about completion. How? She forced herself to ask. Draven hesitated. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. There's a ritual, a claiming. It has to be done willingly, on both sides. And if it's not willing, then it fails, and you die anyway. Kaelira laughed, a broken, bitter sound. So my choices are, complete the bond with a man I barely know, or die. Yes. That's not a choice. No, Draven agreed quietly. It's not. The heat pulsed again, stronger this time, and Kaelira doubled over, gasping. Draven caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her. The moment he touched her, the pain eased, not gone, but bearable. How long do I have? She whispered against his chest. Days, maybe a week. And then? Then the bond consumes you. Kaelira closed her eyes, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. This close, the bond was almost peaceful, almost right. But that only made it worse, because she knew what it meant. She was trapped. I need time, she said finally, to think. You don't have much. I know. She pulled back, forcing herself to meet his eyes. But I need it anyway. Draven studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. All right, we'll reach my territory by tomorrow. You can decide then. Your territory? Kaelira's stomach dropped. You mean your court? Your pack? Yes. And they'll just accept me? A stranger? Someone who forced a bond with their king? Draven's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. They'll accept you because I tell them to, and if they don't, they'll answer to me. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it sent a chill down her spine, because she was beginning to understand what kind of man Draven really was. A king who ruled through absolute power, who didn't negotiate, didn't compromise, who took what he wanted and crushed anyone who stood in his way, and she'd bound herself to him. They left the cave at sunset, moving through the mountain passes as darkness fell. Kaelira's body protested every step, but the heat in her chest kept her moving. It was worse now, constant, insistent, like something inside her was clawing to get out. Draven stayed close, his presence the only thing keeping the pain manageable. She hated how much she needed him, hated the way the bond pulled her toward him, made her crave his touch, but she couldn't deny it either. They were descending into a valley when Draven suddenly stopped. His entire body went rigid, his hand shooting out to catch her arm. What? Quiet. Kaelira froze. She listened, straining to hear whatever had put that edge in his voice, and then she felt it, a shift in the air, a presence, multiple presences. They weren't alone. Show yourself, Draven called out, his voice cold and commanding. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, figures emerged from the shadows, 5 of them, all armed, all moving with the kind of predatory grace that made Kaelira's skin crawl. Warriors. Elite ones. At their head was a woman. She was tall and lean, built like a blade, with sharp features and eyes the color of ice. Her silver hair was pulled back in a severe braid, and she wore armor that gleamed even in the dim light. But it was the way she moved, fluid, dangerous, absolutely confident, that made Kaelira's breath catch. This was someone who killed for a living. The woman's gaze swept over Draven, then landed on Kaelira. Her lip curled in something that might have been disgust. "So," she said, her voice like cut glass. "The rumors are true. The mighty Alpha King has bound himself to a peasant." Draven's expression didn't change. "Varel, I should have known you'd be involved." "Varel." The name sent a jolt through Kaelira. She'd heard it before, whispered in her village, spoken with fear and awe. Varel the Ruthless, the Alpha King's intended mate, the woman who was supposed to stand at his side. And Kaelira had just taken her place. "You look disappointed," Varel continued, her eyes never leaving Kaelira. "Did you think I wouldn't come? That I'd simply accept this insult?" "There's nothing to accept," Draven said flatly. "The bond was formed. It's done." "Oh, I know it's done." Varel stepped closer, and Kaelira instinctively moved back. "I can feel it from here. Weak, incomplete, pathetic." "Careful, Varel." "Or what? You'll defend her?" Varel laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "You can barely stand, Draven. The poison may be gone, but you're still wounded, weakened, and she—" Her gaze raked over Kaelira with open contempt. "She's nothing." The words hit like a physical blow. Kaelira wanted to argue, to defend herself, but what could she say? Varel was right. She was nothing. A village healer who'd stumbled into something far beyond her understanding. But Draven didn't seem to agree. "She saved my life," he said quietly. "Which is more than you ever did." Varel's expression hardened. "I was coming to save you. I was tracking the assassins when she got there first." Draven's tone was final. "Accept it and leave, Varel. Or don't leave. Either way, she's under my protection." "Your protection?" Varel's voice dropped, dangerous and low. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The council will never accept her. The elders will call for her execution. And the other alphas—" She laughed again. "They'll see this as weakness, as proof that you're not fit to rule. Let them try." "They will. And when they do, what will you do? Fight your entire court to protect some human girl who means nothing?" "She's not human." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Kaelira's head snapped up. "What?" Draven didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on Varel. "She has power, real power, the kind that doesn't exist in humans." "Impossible," Varel said flatly. "I felt it myself. She drew poison from my body using nothing but her hands. No herbs, no tools, just raw ability." Draven's voice hardened. "She's something else, something rare." Varel's eyes narrowed. "Even if that's true, it doesn't matter. The bond is incomplete. She's dying. I can see it in her." Kaelira's breath caught. Because Varel was right. She could feel it. The heat, the weakness, the way her body was slowly consuming itself from the inside. "Which is why we're going to the fortress," Draven said, "to complete the ritual." "No!" The word was sharp, final. Draven's expression went cold. "Excuse me?" "I said no." Varel stepped forward, her hand moving to the blade at her hip. "You're not taking her to the fortress. You're not completing that bond, and you're certainly not making her your queen. That's not your decision. It is when your decisions threaten the entire kingdom." Varel's voice rose. "Do you understand what's at stake here? The northern territories are barely holding together as it is. If you show up with some unknown woman as your mate, it will fracture everything you've built. The other alphas will rebel. The council will turn on you, and the enemies you've spent years suppressing will rise up and tear you apart. Then let them try. You arrogant fool!" Varel's hand tightened on her blade. "This isn't about you. It's about survival. About the thousands of people who depend on your strength to keep them safe. And you're willing to throw it all away for what? Some girl you met in the woods?" Kaelira felt the words like a knife to the chest. Because Varel wasn't wrong. She was a stranger, an outsider, someone who had no business standing beside a king. But before she could speak, Draven moved. He was in front of her in an instant, his body a wall between her and Varel. When he spoke, his voice was lethal. "Touch her, and I'll kill you." Varel didn't flinch. "You'd kill me? Your oldest ally? Your intended mate?" In a heartbeat. The two of them stared at each other, the tension so thick Kaelira could barely breathe. And then, slowly, Varel smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Kaelira had ever seen. So it's true, Varel said softly. The Bond really has claimed you. You'd burn your entire kingdom to keep her safe. Draven said nothing. Fine. Varel stepped back, her hand falling away from her blade. I won't kill her. Not yet. Not ever. We'll see. Varel's gaze shifted to Kaelira, and there was something in her eyes, something cold and calculating. Enjoy your time with him, little healer, because it won't last. One way or another, you'll be gone soon. And then she turned and disappeared into the darkness, her warriors following like shadows. Kaelira's legs gave out. Draven caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her. Are you hurt? No, She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't put into words the terror that had just flooded through her. Varel had wanted to kill her, would have killed her if Draven hadn't stopped it. And worse, Varel was right. Kaelira was a threat, a weakness. Someone who would only bring destruction to everything Draven had built. I should go, she whispered. Draven's arms tightened. No. You heard her. I'm putting you in danger, putting your people in danger. I don't care. You should. Kaelira pulled back, forcing herself to meet his eyes. I'm not worth this. I'm not worth risking everything. That's not your decision to make. Isn't it? Her voice broke. You said the Bond has to be willing, on both sides. What if I'm not willing? What if I choose to walk away? Draven's expression went very still. Then you die. Maybe that's better than watching you lose everything because of me. No. The word was absolute. I've lost enough. I won't lose you too. The raw honesty in his voice gutted her, because beneath the authority, beneath the power, she could feel it, the pain, the loneliness. The weight of a man who'd spent his entire life carrying the world on his shoulders, and for some reason, he'd decided she was worth keeping. Why? She whispered. Why do you care so much? Draven's hand lifted, his fingers brushing her cheek. Because when I was dying in that forest, you didn't see a king. You didn't see power or politics or potential alliances. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped. No hesitation, no conditions. His thumb traced her jawline, achingly gentle. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Kaelira's throat tightened. I'm just a healer. It's what I do. You're more than that. His voice dropped, intense and unwavering. And I'm going to prove it to you. Before she could respond, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was fierce and claiming and absolutely overwhelming. Kaelira gasped against his mouth, and the bond exploded between them, bright and hot and undeniable. She could feel everything he was feeling, need, possession, protection, and beneath it all, something that felt dangerously close to no. She couldn't think about that, couldn't let herself feel it. But when Draven pulled back, his eyes were burning. The bond knows, he said quietly, even if you don't. And then he released her, stepping back, leaving her breathless and reeling. They didn't speak for the rest of the journey. Kaelira's mind was spinning too fast, her heart hammering too hard. The kiss had changed something, had made the bond stronger, more real. She could feel Draven now even without touching him, his presence a constant warmth at the edge of her awareness. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt right. They reached the border of Draven's territory just before dawn. Kaelira knew they'd crossed it the moment the forest changed. The trees were taller here, older, their branches forming a canopy so thick it blocked out the sky. And there was something else. A feeling, like the land itself was watching. We're close, Draven said. How close? Another mile. Maybe less. Kaelira's pulse quickened. Will they know? About the bond? Yes, they'll feel it the moment we arrive. And then what? Draven's jaw tightened. Then we find out if my authority is enough to keep you safe. The words should have been comforting. They weren't. They walked in silence until the trees opened up, revealing a massive stone fortress built into the side of a mountain. It was ancient, imposing, and absolutely impregnable. Towers rose into the sky like teeth, and the walls were thick enough to withstand a siege. This was Draven's home, his seat of power, and Kaelira was about to walk into it as an outsider. Guards lined the walls, dozens of them, all armed, all watching. Kaelira could feel their eyes on her, assessing, judging. She forced herself to keep her head up, her spine straight. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. The gates opened as they approached, and Draven led her inside. The courtyard was massive, filled with warriors training, servants hurrying about their tasks, and nobles watching from balconies with cold, calculating eyes. And every single one of them stopped when they saw Kaelira. The silence was deafening. Draven's hand found hers, his grip firm. "Stay close." A man stepped forward, older, silver-haired, dressed in formal robes that marked him as someone important. His eyes swept over Kaelira with barely concealed disgust. "My king," he said, his voice formal and cold. "We've been searching for you for days. We feared the worst." "The worst was avoided," Draven said flatly, "thanks to her." The man's gaze shifted to Kaelira, and she felt the weight of his judgment like a physical thing. "This is the woman? The one who formed the bond?" "Her name is Kaelara," Draven said sharply, "and you will address her with respect." The man's lip curled. "Respect? My lord, she's mine." Draven's voice dropped, lethal and absolute. "And anyone who questions that will answer to me personally." The threat hung in the air like a blade. The older man paled, then bowed stiffly. "Of course, my king. Forgive me." But Kaelira could see it in his eyes, the hatred, the resentment. She wasn't welcome here, and no amount of Draven's authority would change that. Draven led her through the fortress, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed them. They climbed a winding staircase to the upper levels, finally stopping at a set of heavy wooden doors. "These are my chambers," Draven said quietly. "You'll stay here, with me." Kaelira's eyes widened. "With you?" "The bond is unstable. The closer we are, the less pain you'll feel." His expression softened, just slightly. "And I'm not letting you out of my sight, not until I know you're safe." "Safe from what?" "From everyone." The doors opened, revealing a massive room with stone walls, heavy furniture, and a fireplace large enough to stand in. It was masculine, sparse, and oddly comforting in its simplicity. Kaelira stepped inside, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. The bond, the danger, the impossible choice she'd have to make. "Rest," Draven said. "I need to speak with the council, but I'll be back before nightfall." "What will you tell them?" "The truth." His eyes met hers. "That you're mine, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me." He turned to leave, but Kaelira caught his hand. "Draven?" He looked back, and for a moment she saw past the king, past the warrior, to the man beneath. "Thank you," she whispered. His expression softened. "Don't thank me yet. This is only the beginning." And then he was gone, leaving Kaelira alone in a room that smelled like him, surrounded by a power she didn't understand and bound to a man who was either her salvation or her destruction. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the bond pulse beneath her ribs. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. The heat was getting worse. Kaelira paced the room, her hands trembling, her skin burning. Every breath felt like fire in her lungs. The bond was consuming her piece by piece, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She needed Draven, needed his presence, his touch, his... No, she couldn't think like that, couldn't let the bond control her, but it was so hard, so impossibly hard. She was still pacing when the door burst open. Kaelira spun, expecting Draven. Instead, Varel stood in the doorway, her expression cold and triumphant. "Hello, little healer," she said softly. "Did you really think I'd let you have him?" And before Kaelira could move, could scream, could do anything, Varel struck. The blade was coated in something dark, something that burned. Kaelira felt it pierce her side, felt the poison flood into her veins, and she screamed. The bond exploded. And somewhere, miles away, Draven felt it too. Kaelira's vision blurred, her legs gave out. And as she collapsed, the last thing she saw was Varel's smile. Cold, victorious, final. "He'll forget you soon enough," Varel whispered. "And when he does, I'll be there. Right where I belong." Darkness swallowed her whole, and the bond screamed. The bond screamed. Draven was in the council chamber when it hit him. A wave of agony so intense it brought him to his knees. The elders were mid-sentence, arguing about trade routes and border disputes, when their king collapsed, his hands clutching his chest as if his heart were being ripped out. Because it was. "My lord!" Someone rushed forward, but Draven barely heard them. All he could feel was Kaelira, her pain, her terror, her life force flickering like a candle in a storm. She was dying. "Get out!" he rasped. "My lord, you need— Get out!" The roar shook the chamber. The elders scattered like leaves in a gale, their faces pale with shock. Draven didn't care, didn't see them. All he could see was the Bond, bright and desperate, pulling him toward her. He ran. The fortress blurred past him. Corridors, stairs, guards who pressed themselves against walls as he passed. He didn't slow. Couldn't slow. The Bond was fracturing, tearing itself apart, and if he didn't reach her soon, he slammed through the doors to his chambers and stopped dead. Kaelira lay on the floor in a pool of blood, her skin ashen, her breathing shallow. And standing over her, blade still in hand, was Varel. Time froze. Draven's vision went red. Not metaphorically, literally. The world tinged crimson as something ancient and primal surged through him, the Alpha King's rage, amplified 1,000-fold by the Bond. "What did you do?" His voice didn't sound human. Varel didn't flinch. She met his eyes, her expression cold and defiant. "What I had to. She was a weakness, a liability. I removed her." "You—" The words caught in his throat, because he couldn't speak, couldn't think. All he could do was feel, the Bond screaming, Kaelira's life slipping away, and a fury so complete it threatened to consume everything. He moved. Varel was fast, one of the fastest warriors in the kingdom, but Draven was faster. He crossed the room in a heartbeat, his hand closing around her throat, slamming her against the wall with enough force to crack the stone. "You stabbed her," he said quietly. Too quietly. Varel clawed at his hand, gasping. "She was killing you. She saved me." "She bound you, trapped you, made you weak." Draven's grip tightened. "I should kill you right now, slowly, painfully. Make you feel every second of what you did to her." Varel's eyes were wide now, real fear flickering in them for the first time. "Draven, please, give me one reason why I shouldn't. Because—" She choked, her face turning purple. "Because you need me. The Council, the other Alphas, they'll never accept her. But they'll accept me. Kill me, and you lose everything." Draven's hand trembled. Because she was right. Varel was connected to half the noble houses in the kingdom. Her death would fracture his already tenuous alliances, would give his enemies the excuse they needed to rebel. But Kaelira was dying. And in that moment, Draven made a choice. He released Varel. She collapsed, coughing and gasping, and Draven turned his back on her, dropping to his knees beside Kaelira. "Get out," he said. "And if you ever come near her again, politics be damned. I'll kill you myself." Varel staggered to her feet, one hand on her throat. For a moment, she just stared at him. Then, quietly, she said, "You're choosing her over your kingdom." "I'm choosing her over everything." Varel's expression twisted into something between pity and contempt. "Then you're already lost." She left. Draven didn't watch her go. His entire focus was on Kaelira. She was so pale, so still. The wound in her side was still bleeding, the edges blackened with poison. The same poison that had nearly killed him. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He pressed his hands to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but it was useless. The poison was already spreading, dark veins crawling up her ribs, across her chest, toward her heart. She had minutes. Maybe less. The bond pulsed weakly between them, and Draven felt something he hadn't felt in years. Helplessness. "Kaelira." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Stay with me. Please, just stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment her gaze focused on him, hazy and confused. "Draven?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here. I've got you. Hurts. I know it hurts." His throat tightened. "But you're going to be okay. You hear me? You're going to be fine." She tried to smile. Failed. "You're a terrible liar." "Kaelira, it's okay." Her hand lifted weakly, touching his face. "You tried. That's more than most people would do." "Don't." His voice broke. "Don't you dare give up." Not giving up, just tired. Her hand fell, and Draven felt the bond start to unravel. No, he wasn't going to lose her. Not like this. Not when he'd just found her. There was only one option left. One desperate, dangerous option. The life transfer. It was forbidden. Ancient magic that no one used anymore because the cost was too high. But Draven didn't care about the cost. Didn't care about anything except keeping Kaelira alive. He closed his eyes, reaching deep into the bond, and pulled. His life force flooded into her. Not healing, he didn't have her gift for that, but sustaining, keeping her heart beating, keeping her lungs breathing, pouring his own strength into her dying body. The effect was immediate. Kaelira gasped, her back arching off the floor. The dark veins stopped spreading, her heartbeat steadied, but Draven's vision blurred, because the transfer went both ways. As he gave her his life, the poison flooded into him. He could feel it burning through his veins, shutting down his body piece by piece. Worth it. She was worth it. He held on, pouring everything he had into her, even as his own strength failed. His arms shook, his breathing turned ragged, but he didn't let go. Not until her eyes opened. "Draven?" Her voice was stronger now, clearer. "What are you? Stop! Stop it!" "Can't," he managed. "You'll die." "So will you." "Doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." She grabbed his wrist, trying to pull his hand away, but she was too weak. "You can't do this. You can't trade your life for mine." "Watch me." "Draven, please." But he was already fading. The poison was in his lungs now, his heart. He could feel his body shutting down, could feel death creeping closer. And he smiled, because Kaelira was alive, and that was enough. His grip loosened, his eyes closed, and the last thing he heard was Kaelira screaming his name. Kaelira's scream tore through the fortress. Guards came running, healers rushed in, but she barely saw them. All she could see was Draven, collapsed on the floor, his skin ashen, his breathing so shallow it was almost non-existent. He'd saved her, again, and it was killing him. "No," she whispered. "No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to die for me." The bond pulsed weakly between them, barely there. Kaelira pressed her hands to his chest, feeling the poison raging through him. The same poison Virel had used on her. The same poison she'd pulled from him once before. She could do it again. But this time was different. This time, the poison was mixed with his life force, tangled so completely that separating them would kill him, and her power wasn't strong enough, wasn't refined enough. Unless... the bond. Kaelira's breath hitched. The bond was a connection, a channel. What if she could use it, pull the poison through the bond itself, filter it using their combined strength? It was insane. Dangerous. It could kill them both. But doing nothing would definitely kill him. Kaelira closed her eyes and reached into the bond. It was like diving into a river of fire. The bond was unstable, fractured, barely holding together. But it was there. And beneath the chaos, she could feel Draven, his strength, his will, his absolute refusal to let go of her even in death. She grabbed onto that feeling and pulled. The poison came reluctantly, fighting her every step of the way. Kaelira gritted her teeth, dragging it through the bond, through her own body, neutralizing it piece by piece. It burned, it hurt, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Around her, the healers were shouting, trying to pull her away, but she ignored them. All her focus was on Draven, on keeping him alive. The poison fought back. It surged through the bond, trying to overwhelm her, to drag her down with it. Kaelira's vision blurred. Her hands shook. And then suddenly someone else was there. Not physically, but in the bond. A presence, strong, ancient, furious, Draven. Even unconscious, even dying, he was fighting, helping her, lending her his strength. Together, they pulled. The poison came free in a rush, flooding out of Draven and into Kaelira. She absorbed it, neutralized it, let it burn itself out against her own life force. And when the last of it was gone, she collapsed forward, gasping. Draven's eyes opened. "You're insane," he rasped. Kaelira laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. "You're one to talk. I told you to stay safe, and I told you I don't take orders from you." Despite everything, Draven smiled. Stubborn. Hypocrite. They stared at each other, both too weak to move, the bond thrumming between them, stronger now, more solid, changed by what they'd just survived. A healer stepped forward, an older woman with sharp eyes and gentle hands. "My lord, you need rest. Both of you do." Draven didn't look away from Kaelira. "Get Virel. Bring her to the throne room, now." "My lord." "Now." The healer bowed and fled. Kaelira frowned. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done the moment she attacked you." Draven's expression hardened. I'm going to make sure she never threatens you again. Draven, if you kill her, I won't kill her. That would be too easy. He sat up slowly, wincing. But I will make sure everyone in this fortress understands exactly what happens when someone tries to harm what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe. Can you stand? He asked. Kaelira nodded, letting him help her to her feet. Her side still ached where Varel had stabbed her, but the wound was already closing. The bond was healing her, healing both of them. Draven's hand found hers. Stay close, and no matter what happens in that throne room, don't let go of me. Why? What are you planning? His eyes met hers, and in them she saw the Alpha King. Not the wounded man she'd saved, not the protector who'd nearly died for her, but the ruler who'd united the Northern Territories through sheer force of will. I'm going to show them who you really are, he said quietly, and make sure they never question your place at my side again. The throne room was packed. Word had spread fast. The king was dying. The bond was broken. The stranger who'd caused all this chaos was finally being dealt with. Except none of that was true. Kaelira stood beside Draven at the base of the throne, her hand still in his, and watched the nobles file in. She could feel their eyes on her, assessing, judging, dismissing. To them, she was nothing. A peasant. An interloper who'd somehow tricked their king into a bond. But Draven's grip on her hand was steady, unshakable. The council elders stood in a semicircle, their faces grave. At their center was the silver-haired man who'd met them in the courtyard, Lord Castor, the king's chief advisor. My lord, Castor began carefully, we're relieved to see you recovered, but we must discuss the situation. There's nothing to discuss, Draven said flatly. With respect, my lord, there is. Castor's gaze flickered to Kaelira. The woman has caused considerable upheaval. The bond she forced upon you, she didn't force anything. The bond formed because I'm alive, because she saved me when no one else could. Nevertheless, the bond is incomplete, unstable. It's affecting your judgment. My judgment is fine. Is it? Castor stepped forward. You nearly died tonight, and not from the original poison, but from trying to save her. You risked your life, and by extension, the stability of the entire kingdom, for a woman you barely know. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Draven's expression didn't change. Are you questioning my decisions, Castor? I'm questioning the wisdom of completing a bond that serves no political purpose and actively endangers our alliances. Then let me be clear. Draven's voice dropped, cold and absolute. I don't care about your alliances. I don't care about politics. And I certainly don't care about your opinions on who I choose to bond with. The room went silent. Castor's face paled. My lord, I am your king, and she is mine. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly, here, now. The challenge hung in the air like a blade. No one moved, because challenging the Alpha King meant fighting him, and no one in that room was strong enough to survive it. Castor bowed stiffly. Of course, my lord, we meant no disrespect. Good. Then bring in Virel. The doors opened, and Virel was escorted in by guards. Her hands were bound, her face bruised, but her eyes were still defiant. Draven didn't rise from his seat. Virel of House Theron, you stand accused of attempted murder. How do you plead? Virel's chin lifted. I did what needed to be done. That's not an answer. I plead guilty. Her voice rang out clear and strong. I stabbed her. I used poison, and I'd do it again. Gasps echoed through the room. Draven's expression was carved from ice. Why? Because she's destroying you. Virel's composure cracked. Can't you see it? The bond is tearing you apart, making you weak, making you choose her over your duty, over your people, over everything you've built. I chose to save her life. That's not weakness. Yes, it is. A king doesn't sacrifice himself for one person. A king sacrifices one person to save thousands. Virel's voice rose. That's what leadership means. That's what you taught me. Draven was silent for a long moment. Then quietly he said, and that's exactly why you'll never be queen. Virel flinched as if he'd struck her. Leadership isn't about sacrifice, Draven continued. It's about choice. And I choose her. Not because the bond forces me to, but because she showed me something I'd forgotten. What? Compassion. The word hung in the air. Draven stood, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Varel, you are hereby stripped of your rank, your lands, and your position in my court. You will be exiled to the southern border, where you will serve as a garrison commander until I decide otherwise. You're exiling me? Varel's voice was hollow. After everything I've done for you? You tried to kill my mate. Be grateful exile is all you're getting. Varel's eyes filled with something that might have been tears. I loved you. No. Draven's voice softened just slightly. You loved the idea of me, the power, the throne, but you never saw me. Not really. He turned to Kaelira, and his expression changed, warmed. She did. Varel looked between them, and something in her expression broke. You'll regret this. Maybe. But it's my regret to carry. Guard stepped forward, leading Varel away. She didn't fight, didn't resist, just walked, her shoulders straight, her head high. And Kaelira felt a strange pang of sympathy. Because Varel had loved him, in her own twisted way. But love wasn't enough. Not when it came with conditions. The throne room began to empty, nobles filing out in hushed groups. But Castor remained. My lord, he said carefully, the other alphas will hear of this. They'll see it as weakness? Draven's mouth curved. Let them. And when they come to challenge me, I'll remind them exactly why I'm king. Castor bowed and left, leaving Kaelira and Draven alone. You didn't have to do that, Kaelira said quietly. Yes, I did. You made an enemy of everyone in that room. I already had enemies. Draven turned to face her, his hands coming up to cup her face. At least now they know where I stand. And where's that? With you. His thumb brushed her cheek. Always with you. Kaelira's breath caught, because she could feel it through the bond, the absolute certainty of his words. He meant it, every word. The bond is still incomplete, she whispered. I know. We have to complete it, or I'll die anyway. I know that too. And when we do, I'll be bound to you forever. No escape. No freedom. Draven's eyes searched hers. Is that what you want? Freedom. Kaelira thought about her old life, the village, the laws, the constant fear of being discovered. And then she thought about this, standing in a throne room, holding hands with a king who'd nearly died for her, who'd chosen her over everything. I don't know what I want, she admitted, but I know I don't want to die. Then we complete the bond. His voice was firm. Tomorrow night, under the full moon. And after? After, you're my queen, my mate, my equal in all things. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like a promise. What if I'm not strong enough? Draven smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. You pulled poison from a dying king, twice. You stood up to Varel. You survived my court. His forehead pressed against hers. You're stronger than you know. Kaelira closed her eyes, letting herself believe it, just for a moment. But deep down, she knew the truth. The real test was still coming. That night, Kaelira couldn't sleep. She lay in Draven's massive bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the bond pulse beneath her ribs. It was stronger now, more insistent, demanding completion. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would either become his mate or die trying. The door opened quietly. Draven slipped inside, his expression softening when he saw her awake. Can't sleep? Too much thinking. He crossed to the bed, sitting on the edge. About tomorrow? About everything. Kaelira sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. What if completing the bond changes me? What if I become someone I don't recognize? You won't. How do you know? Because the bond doesn't change who you are. It just amplifies it. Draven's hand found hers. You'll still be you, just more. More what? More powerful. More connected. More alive. His eyes met hers. And more mine. There it was again, that possessiveness, that absolute certainty, and this time Kaelira didn't fight it. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. What if I fail? You won't. But if I do, then I fail with you. Draven's grip tightened. We're in this together now, for better or worse. Kaelira looked at him, really looked at him, this man who'd gone from stranger to protector to something more. Something she still didn't have words for. Why me? She asked. You could have anyone, someone strong, someone worthy. Why choose me? Draven was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Because when I was at my weakest, when I had nothing to offer but pain and death, you didn't see a king. You saw a person worth saving. His voice dropped. No one has ever looked at me like that before. The raw honesty in his words broke something in her chest. I'm not special, she whispered. Yes, you are. His hand cupped her face. You just don't see it yet. And then he kissed her. This time, it was different. Softer, slower. Like he was memorizing the taste of her, the feel of her. The bond flared between them, warm and right, and Kaelira let herself sink into it. Let herself feel what the bond was trying to tell her, that she was his, and he was hers. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. When they finally pulled apart, Draven rested his forehead against hers. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we finish this. Together? Always together. Kaelira closed her eyes, feeling the bond settle between them like a promise. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, just for tonight, she let herself believe it would be okay. She was wrong, because in the shadows outside the fortress, in the dark places where even Draven's authority couldn't reach, plans were being made. Plans that would shatter everything. And the people making them had no intention of letting Kaelira survive to become queen. The storm was coming, and it would drown them all. The storm came at dawn, not a storm of rain and thunder, a storm of steel and fury. Kaelira woke to the sound of bells, the fortress alarm ringing with frantic urgency. She bolted upright, her heart hammering, and found Draven already at the window, fully armed, his expression carved from stone. What's happening? They're here. His voice was flat, lethal. Who? The other alphas, all of them. Kaelira's blood turned to ice. She crossed to the window and looked down at the courtyard. It was filled with warriors, hundreds of them, bearing the banners of a dozen different territories. And at their head stood 5 figures, each radiating the same brutal authority as Draven, the Alpha Council, the rulers of the northern territories, and they'd come for blood. They're early, Draven said quietly. I wasn't expecting them until after the ritual. What do they want? Me. His jaw tightened. Or more specifically, they want to challenge my authority, prove I'm unfit to rule. Because of me. Because of us. He turned to face her, his eyes fierce. They see the bond as weakness, as proof that I've lost my edge. Have you? Draven's mouth curved into something sharp and dangerous. Let's find out. He moved to leave, but Kaelira caught his arm. Wait, what are you going to do? What I always do. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. I'm going to remind them why I'm king. And if they don't listen, then I'll make them listen. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it sent a chill down her spine, because she could feel it through the bond, the edge of violence barely contained. Draven wasn't just planning to talk to them. He was preparing for war. Let me come with you, she said. Absolutely not. Draven, they're here because of you. If you show your face, it'll give them an excuse to attack. His expression softened, just slightly. Stay here. Stay safe. I'll handle this. I'm not hiding while you fight my battles. You're not hiding. You're surviving. His hand cupped her face. Please. I can't focus on them if I'm worried about you. The plea in his voice broke her resistance. Kaelira nodded reluctantly, and Draven pressed a quick, fierce kiss to her forehead before turning and striding out, leaving her alone with the sound of war drums echoing through the fortress. Draven descended to the courtyard like a king walking to his execution. His warriors lined the walls, weapons drawn, their faces grim. But Draven had ordered them to stand down. No one was to attack unless he gave the command. This was his fight, his responsibility. The 5 alphas stood waiting in formation, their expressions ranging from contempt to calculation. Draven recognized them all. He'd fought beside some of them, against others. They were the most powerful rulers in the north, and together they could tear his kingdom apart. At the center stood Alpha Ridian, a massive man with a scarred face and eyes like chips of ice. He was the oldest of them, the most traditional, and the one who'd opposed Draven's rule from the beginning. Draven. Ridian's voice was a rumble. We need to talk. Then talk. Not here. In private. Draven's eyes narrowed. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my people. Very well. Ridian stepped forward, his warriors parting to let him through. We've come to discuss your situation. There is no situation. Isn't there? Ridian's gaze was piercing. You've formed a bond with an unknown woman, refused to complete your alliance with Virel, exiled one of your most valuable commanders, and from what we hear, you nearly died protecting this stranger. She's not a stranger. She's my mate. Is she? Another Alpha spoke up, a woman with silver braids and a voice like crushed glass, Alpha Morgaine. Because from where we stand, it looks like you've been compromised, weakened by a bond you didn't choose. I chose to let her save my life. And in doing so, you bound yourself to someone with no lineage, no power, no political value. Ridian's voice hardened. You've made yourself vulnerable, Draven, and vulnerability in a king is dangerous for everyone. Your Draven's expression didn't change. Are you challenging me, Ridian? Not yet. Ridian smiled, a cold, predatory expression. But we're giving you a choice. Break the bond, send the girl away, and we'll forget this ever happened. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to conclude that you're no longer fit to rule. The words hung in the air like a blade. Draven could feel his warriors tensing, could feel the weight of every eye on him. This was the moment, the choice that would define everything. Break the bond and keep his throne, or keep Kyalira and lose everything. No, he said quietly. Ridian's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I said no. Draven's voice was calm, absolute. I'm not breaking the bond. I'm not sending her away. And I'm certainly not letting you dictate who I choose as my mate. Then you're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool who's about to complete the bond tonight, under the full moon, and when I do, she'll be my queen. Draven's gaze swept over the assembled alphas. And anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. Right here, right now. Silence. The alphas exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering across their faces, because challenging Draven meant fighting him. And no one, not even Ridian, was entirely sure they could win. Finally, Morgaine spoke. You're willing to risk civil war over one woman? I'm willing to risk everything for her. Draven's voice dropped. Because she's the only person in this entire kingdom who looked at me and saw something worth saving. Not a king, not a weapon, just a man. The honesty in his words cut through the tension like a knife. Ridian's expression shifted, just slightly. You love her. It wasn't a question. Draven didn't answer, didn't need to. The bond was answer enough. Morgaine shook her head. Love makes you weak. No. A new voice cut through the courtyard. Love makes him stronger. Everyone turned. Kyalira stood at the top of the stairs, her chin lifted, her eyes blazing. She'd ignored Draven's order, had come anyway. And she looked like a queen. Draven's heart stopped because she was supposed to be safe, hidden, protected. But she'd chosen to stand beside him anyway. Who are you to speak here? Ridian demanded. I'm the woman who saved your king's life. Kyalira descended the stairs, each step measured and deliberate. I'm the one who pulled poison from his body when everyone else had given up, and I'm the one he's chosen to bond with. You're a peasant, Morgaine said dismissively. Maybe, but I'm also the reason Draven is alive. Kyalira stopped at the bottom of the stairs, her gaze sweeping over the alphas. You want to talk about weakness? Real weakness isn't forming a bond. It's being too afraid to form one, too proud to accept help, too blind to see strength in anything other than violence. Ridian's eyes narrowed. Careful, girl. You're speaking to the Alpha Council. I know exactly who I'm speaking to. Kyalira's voice didn't waver. I'm speaking to people who value power over compassion, control over connection, and you're so busy protecting your thrones that you've forgotten what it means to actually lead. And you think you know better? I know that a good leader doesn't sacrifice the people who save them. Kyalira looked at Draven, and something in her expression softened. And I know that Draven is a better king with the bond than he ever was without it. Draven's chest tightened because she was defending him, publicly, against the most powerful people in the kingdom. She was either the bravest person he'd ever met or the most reckless. Probably both. Morgaine laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Pretty words, but words don't prove strength. If you want us to accept you as Draven's mate, you'll need to prove you're worthy. Fine, Kalira's chin lifted. Name the test. The courtyard went silent. Even Draven stared at her, his heart hammering, because she'd just challenged the Alpha Council, had demanded they test her, and there was no way this ended well. Rydian's expression shifted into something calculating. You want a test? Very well. Tomorrow at dawn you'll face the trial of bonding. Draven's blood ran cold. No, absolutely not. It's the only way, Rydian said flatly. If she survives, we'll accept the bond. If she doesn't, he shrugged, then the problem solves itself. The trial hasn't been used in decades. It's barbaric. It's traditional. Morgaine's smile was sharp. And if she's truly worthy of being your mate, she'll survive. Draven stepped forward, his voice dropping to something lethal. I won't let you. I'll do it. Kalira's voice cut through his protest. Draven spun to face her. Kalira, no. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Then explain it to me. His jaw tightened. The trial of bonding is a test of strength, endurance, and will. It's designed to break you, to prove whether you're strong enough to stand beside an alpha. And if I fail, you die. The words hung between them. Kalira's pulse hammered in her throat, but she didn't back down. And if I succeed, then they accept you as my mate, as their queen. Then I'll succeed. Kalira, she stepped closer, her hand finding his. You've saved me twice now. Let me save you this time. Draven's expression cracked. I can't lose you. You won't. She smiled, a small, fierce thing. I'm stronger than I look. He wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but the determination in her eyes stopped him. Because she was right. This was the only way. Fine, he said quietly, but I'm staying with you, every step. You can't, Rydian said. The trial must be faced alone. Then change the rules. We don't change the rules for anyone. Draven's eyes flashed. You will for me. Or I'll withdraw from the council entirely and take my territories with me. The threat was real, absolute, and the Alphas knew it. After a long moment, Rydian nodded grudgingly. Fine. You can accompany her, but you cannot interfere. If you do, she fails automatically. Draven's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Kalira squeezed his hand. I can do this. I know. His voice was rough. Just wish you didn't have to. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Draven explained the trial in brutal detail. It consisted of 3 tests: endurance, combat, and will. Each one designed to push the candidate to their absolute limit, and if Kalira failed even one, she'd die. The first test is physical, Draven said, pacing his chambers. You'll be submerged in freezing water and forced to hold your breath until your body shuts down. The bond should help, but it's incomplete, Kalira finished, so I won't get the full benefit. Exactly. His expression was grim. The second test is combat. You'll face 3 warriors in succession. They won't kill you, but they won't hold back either. And the third? Draven's jaw tightened. The third is the worst. It's a test of will. They'll use magic to attack your mind, force you to relive your worst memories, your deepest fears. It's designed to break you psychologically. Kalira's stomach churned. And if I break? Then the bond shatters, and we both die. The weight of those words settled over her like a shroud. Why are you telling me this? She asked quietly, trying to scare me into backing out. No. Draven crossed to her, his hands framing her face. I'm telling you so you know what you're up against, so you can prepare. How do I prepare for something like that? You remember why you're doing it. His thumb brushed her cheek. You remember that I'm waiting for you on the other side, and you fight like hell to get back to me. Kalira closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. What if I'm not strong enough? You are. His forehead pressed against hers. You just have to believe it. That night, Kalira didn't sleep. She stood at the window watching the moon rise, feeling the bond pulse beneath her ribs. Tomorrow, everything would change. She'd either prove herself worthy of standing beside Draven, or she'd die trying. There was no middle ground. You should rest, Draven said softly from the bed. Can't. Kalira glanced back at him. Too much thinking. About tomorrow? About everything. She turned to face him fully. What if I fail? What happens to you? Don't think about that. I have to. If the bond breaks, I'll survive. His voice was firm. I always do. That's not true. Kalira crossed to the bed, sitting beside him. You nearly died. Twice. And both times it was because of me. Both times, it was because I chose you. Draven's hand found hers, and I'd make the same choice again, every time. Even if it destroys you? Even then. The absolute certainty in his voice broke something inside her, because he meant it. Every word. I don't deserve you, she whispered. Yes, you do. He pulled her down beside him, his arms wrapping around her. You just don't see it yet. They lay there in silence, the bond thrumming between them, and Kaelira let herself imagine a future, a life where she survived the trial, where she stood beside Draven not as a burden, but as an equal. It seemed impossible, but then again, so had everything else. Dawn came too quickly. Kaelira woke to find Draven already dressed, his expression grim. He didn't speak as he helped her into the ceremonial robes, simple white fabric that marked her as a candidate for the trial. The fortress was silent as they walked to the arena. No one spoke. No one met her eyes. They all thought she was going to die. Maybe they were right. The arena was an ancient stone circle, open to the sky, with the 5 alphas seated on elevated thrones. Warriors lined the walls, watching with cold, assessing eyes. In the center of the circle was a massive pool of water, steam rising from its surface. Beside it stood 3 armed warriors, their faces hidden behind masks, and beyond them, a single chair carved with runes that seemed to pulse with dark energy. The 3 tests. Kaelira's heart hammered in her chest, but she forced herself to keep walking, to keep her chin up, her spine straight. She would not show fear. Rydian stood, his voice echoing through the arena. Kaelira, of no house, no lineage, you have requested the trial of bonding. Do you understand the terms? I do. Then let us begin. Draven's hand caught hers, his grip fierce. Remember what I said. Fight like hell, and come back to me. Kaelira nodded, unable to speak, and then she stepped into the circle. The first test began immediately. 2 warriors grabbed her arms, dragging her to the pool. Before she could brace herself, they plunged her under. The cold hit like a hammer. Kaelira's lungs seized, her body screaming in shock. The water was ice, colder than anything natural. It burned. She tried to surface, but hands held her down, forcing her to stay under, to endure. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred, and then suddenly, warmth flooded through her. The bond. Draven was pouring his strength into her, helping her endure. Kaelira grabbed onto that feeling, using it to anchor herself, to push past the pain. Seconds stretched into eternity. Her body screamed for air. Her mind began to fracture, but she held on. And finally, they pulled her out. Kaelira collapsed on the stone, gasping, her entire body shaking. But she was alive. 1 test down. The second test came before she'd fully recovered. The 3 masked warriors stepped forward, weapons drawn. Kaelira forced herself to stand, her legs trembling. She had no weapon, no training. This was going to hurt. The first warrior attacked without warning, a vicious strike aimed at her ribs. Kaelira barely dodged, stumbling back. The second warrior came from behind, catching her shoulder with the flat of a blade. Pain exploded through her. She bit back a scream. Move. She had to move. Kaelira ducked under the next strike, using her smaller size to her advantage. She couldn't beat them in strength, but maybe she could outlast them. The bond pulsed, and suddenly she could feel Draven's presence. Not interfering, not fighting for her, just there. Steady. Solid. A reminder that she wasn't alone. Kaelira gritted her teeth and threw herself forward. She fought like a wild thing, no technique, no grace, just raw desperation. She took hit after hit, her body screaming in protest, but she didn't go down, didn't surrender. And slowly, impossibly, the warriors began to tire. Because Kaelira had something they didn't, she had a reason to survive. The third warrior finally stepped back, lowering his weapon. The test was over. Kaelira collapsed to her knees, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. But she was still standing. 2 tests down. The third test was the worst. They led her to the chair, strapping her arms down. The runes flared to life, and Kaelira felt something dark and invasive slide into her mind. Images flooded her vision, memories, fears. Her mother's broken eyes, her sister's screams, the village burning, Torvok's hands around her throat, and beneath it all, a voice, cold, mocking. You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. Draven will realize it soon enough, and when he does, he'll cast you aside like the worthless peasant you are. The words cut deeper than any blade, because part of her believed them. Kalira tried to fight back, tried to push the voice away, but it was relentless, digging into every insecurity, every doubt, every fear she'd ever had. You're going to fail. You're going to die, and Draven will forget you. No. Yes. He's a king. You're nothing. He'll find someone better, someone worthy. No. Kalira grabbed onto that denial, that refusal, and pulled. She thought of Draven's face, his voice, the way he'd looked at her when he said she was worth everything, and she believed him. The voice screamed, trying to drown her out, but Kalira was done listening. I'm not nothing, she said aloud. I'm the woman who saved the Alpha King. I'm the woman who survived poison, exile, and your stupid trial, and I'm the woman Draven chose. The runes flickered. I'm strong. I'm worthy. And I'm not going anywhere. The dark presence shattered. The runes went dark, and Kalira opened her eyes. The arena was silent. The 5 alphas stared at her, their expressions ranging from shock to grudging respect. Because no one had ever broken the 3rd test that quickly. Rydian stood slowly. She's passed. The words echoed through the arena like thunder. Kalira's restraints released, and she stumbled forward. Draven was there in an instant, catching her, his arms wrapping around her like steel. You did it, he whispered fiercely. You actually did it. Kalira laughed, a broken, exhausted sound. Told you I was stronger than I looked. You're incredible. She looked up at him, and the bond flared between them, bright and fierce and complete. Because something had changed during the trial. The bond had solidified, strengthened. They were connected now, truly connected. Morgaine stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Kalira of No House, you have proven yourself worthy. The Council recognizes your bond with Alpha King Draven. The other alphas nodded, one by one. Even Rydian grudgingly bowed his head. Kalira had won. She'd proven herself to the most powerful people in the kingdom, had earned their respect through sheer force of will. But as Draven helped her from the arena, as the warriors lined the walls and bowed, Kalira felt something else. A change. Inside her. The bond wasn't just connecting her to Draven anymore, it was transforming her. And she had no idea what she was becoming. The bond wasn't just connecting her to Draven anymore, it was transforming her, and she had no idea what she was becoming. Kalira collapsed the moment they reached Draven's chambers, her legs finally giving out. He caught her before she hit the floor, lifting her effortlessly and carrying her to the bed. Her entire body felt like it had been shattered and pieced back together wrong. Easy, Draven murmured, settling her against the pillows. You need to rest. Can't. Kalira's voice came out hoarse. Something's happening. I can feel it. The bond is completing itself. It's normal. This doesn't feel normal. She pressed a hand to her chest where the bond pulsed with increasing intensity. It feels like I'm burning from the inside out. Draven's expression shifted to concern. He pressed his palm over her heart, and his eyes widened. The transformation is accelerating. It shouldn't be this fast. What transformation? When a human bonds with an alpha, their body changes, adapts. It's supposed to take weeks, maybe months. But you, he shook his head. You're changing in hours. Kalira's breath hitched. Is that bad? I don't know. No one's ever completed a bond this quickly before. The heat intensified, spreading through her veins like liquid fire. Kalira gasped, her back arching off the bed. It felt like her bones were reshaping, her muscles tearing and rebuilding, her very cells rewriting themselves. Draven, I'm here. His hands framed her face. I'm right here. Just breathe through it. It hurts. I know it hurts. But you have to let it happen. If you fight it, it could kill you. Kalira wanted to scream, wanted to claw her way out of her own skin. But Draven's eyes held hers, steady and unwavering, and she forced herself to breathe, to let the fire consume her. The transformation lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of agony that felt like 3 years. Kalira lost track of time, lost track of everything except the burning in Draven's voice, constant and soothing, pulling her back every time she started to drift. Stay with me. That's it. Just a little longer. You're doing so well. Stay with me. And finally, it stopped. The fire faded, the pain receded, and Kalira opened her eyes. Everything looked different, sharper, clearer. She could see individual dust motes floating in the air, could hear the heartbeats of guards 3 floors down, could smell the wood smoke from the kitchens mixed with leather and steel and Draven's scent. Pine and winter and something uniquely him. Kaelyra? Draven's voice was cautious. How do you feel? She sat up slowly, testing her body. The wounds from the trial were gone, completely healed. Her muscles felt stronger, coiled with power she'd never possessed before. And the bond? The bond was no longer a separate thing. It was part of her now, woven into every cell, every breath. I feel... She searched for words. Different, stronger, like I could run for days and never get tired. Draven's expression was unreadable. Look at your hands. Kaelyra lifted them and froze. Her skin was glowing, actually glowing, with a soft silver light that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. As she watched, the glow faded, sinking back beneath her skin. What was that? Your power. Draven's voice was quiet. It's manifesting. My what? The bond doesn't just transform you physically. It unlocks whatever latent abilities you have. He caught her hand, tracing the lines of her palm. And judging by what I just saw, yours are considerable. Kaelyra stared at him. I don't understand. I'm just a healer. I can pull poison and set bones. That's it. No. Draven's eyes met hers, intense and certain. You're an Alpha Queen now, and that means you're something more. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A guard stood there, breathless and pale. My lord, the council. They're demanding an audience immediately. Draven's jaw tightened. Tell them to wait. They said it's urgent, about the bond, about... The guard's eyes flickered to Kaelyra. About what she's become. Kaelyra's stomach dropped, because she could hear it in his voice. Fear. They were afraid of her. Go, she said quietly to Draven. I'll be fine. I'm not leaving you. You have to. They're your council, your allies. She forced a smile. Besides, I need to figure out what's happening to me, and I can't do that with you hovering. Draven looked like he wanted to argue, but finally, reluctantly, he nodded. I'll be back as soon as I can. Don't, he hesitated. Don't try to use your power. Not until we understand what it is. I won't. He kissed her forehead and left, taking the guard with him, leaving Kaelyra alone with her transformation. She stood slowly, testing her balance. Everything felt different. Her center of gravity had shifted. Her muscles responded faster, smoother. She moved to the mirror and froze. The woman staring back at her was familiar, but changed. Her features were sharper, more defined. Her eyes, once brown, now held flecks of amber. And beneath her skin, that silver light pulsed faintly, like moonlight on water. She looked powerful. She looked dangerous. She looked like a queen. Kaelyra pressed her palm to the mirror and the glass cracked. She jerked back, staring at her hand in shock. She'd barely touched it, hadn't used any force at all. But the mirror was fractured, spiderweb cracks spreading from where she'd made contact. What am I? She whispered. The bond hummed in response, but offered no answers. Kaelyra turned away from the mirror and paced. She needed to understand this, needed to control it before someone got hurt. She thought back to her grandmother's teachings, to the forbidden power she'd hidden her entire life. The ability to draw poison, to manipulate life force, to change things on a fundamental level. What if the transformation hadn't just unlocked her power? What if it had amplified it, made it stronger? Kaelyra looked at her hands, at the faint silver glow beneath her skin. And slowly, carefully, she reached for the power. It responded immediately. Energy flooded through her, raw, untamed, overwhelming. She could feel every living thing in the fortress, could sense their heartbeats, their breath, their life force like points of light in a vast darkness. And she could touch them, influence them, change them. The realization was terrifying. Kaelyra pulled back sharply, severing the connection. Her hands were shaking, because this wasn't healing. This was something else, something far more dangerous. This was the power to unmake. A knock at the door made her jump. Come in, she called, forcing her voice steady. The door opened and an older woman entered, the healer who'd tended to Draven after Varel's attack. Her expression was cautious but not unkind. My lady, I'm healer Maris. The king asked me to check on you. I'm fine. With respect, my lady, you just underwent a transformation that should have killed you. I need to make sure there are no complications. Kalira hesitated, then nodded. All right. Maris approached carefully, her movements measured. She pressed her fingers to Kalira's wrist, checking her pulse, then examined her eyes, her skin, her breathing. Remarkable, she murmured. Your body is completely healed. No scarring, no residual damage. It's as if the trial never happened. Is that normal? For a bonded mate? Yes, but this level of healing... Maris shook her head. I've never seen anything like it. What does it mean? Maris was quiet for a moment. Then, carefully, she said, It means you're not human anymore. Not entirely. The bond has changed you into something new. What am I then? An Alpha Queen. Maris's eyes met hers. The first in 3 generations. Kalira's breath caught. What happened to the others? They died. The transformation was too much for them. But I survived. You did more than survive. Maris's voice dropped. You thrived, and that terrifies them. The council? Everyone. Maris stepped back. You need to be careful, my lady. Power like yours makes people nervous, especially when they don't understand it. I don't understand it either. Then learn, quickly. Maris moved to the door, then paused. And my lady, don't let them see your fear. Fear is weakness, and they'll use it against you. Then she was gone, leaving Kalira alone with her thoughts and her power. Draven returned hours later, his expression grim. What happened? Kalira asked immediately. The council is divided. He crossed to the window, his shoulders tense. Half of them want to accept you as queen. The other half think you're too dangerous. Dangerous how? They felt the power spike when you transformed. They know you're not just a bonded mate. You're something more. He turned to face her, and they're afraid of what that means. Kalira's chest tightened. What do they want? Proof that you can control it, that you won't use it against them. And if I can't prove that? Draven's jaw clenched. Then they'll try to break the bond, forcibly. Horror flooded through her. Can they do that? They can try. It would probably kill us both, but that won't stop them if they're scared enough. Kalira stood, her hands clenching into fists. I won't let them. Kalira, no. She stepped toward him, her voice hardening. I survived your poison. I survived Virel. I survived the trial. And I sure as hell am not going to let a bunch of scared politicians destroy what we've built. Draven's expression shifted. Surprise, then something that looked like pride. What are you suggesting? A demonstration. I'll show them I can control my power, that I'm not a threat. And if something goes wrong? It won't. She hoped. Draven studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, but we do this my way. Controlled. Safe. Agreed. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. You're sure about this? Kalira leaned into him, feeling the bond settle between them like a promise. I'm sure. Because she'd come too far to back down now. The demonstration was set for dawn. Kalira spent the night practicing, learning the edges of her power. She discovered she could sense injuries in others, could speed healing, could even transfer energy from one person to another. But she also discovered the darker side. She could stop a heart with a thought, could drain life force as easily as she could give it. The power to heal was also the power to destroy. And that terrified her. By the time dawn broke, Kalira was exhausted but ready. Draven led her to the arena where the entire council had gathered, not just the 5 alphas, but dozens of lesser nobles, warriors, and advisors. They wanted a show, and Kalira was going to give them one. Rydian stood at the center, his expression carved from stone. Alpha Queen Kalira, you claim to have control over your power. Prove it. What would you have me do? Heal. He gestured to a group of wounded warriors lined against the wall. These men were injured in training yesterday. If you can heal them, all of them, without causing harm, we'll accept your claim. Kalira's pulse quickened. There were at least 20 warriors, some with broken bones, others with deep cuts, one with what looked like internal bleeding. This wasn't a test. This was an execution in slow motion. But Draven's hand found hers, squeezing gently, and through the bond she felt his confidence, his belief in her. All right, she said, I'll do it. She approached the first warrior, a young man with a shattered leg. Kalira knelt beside him, placing her hands on the injury, and she reached for her power. It came easier this time, smoother. She could feel the broken bones, could sense exactly where they needed to realign. Slowly, carefully, she poured energy into the wound, knitting bone and tissue back together. The warrior gasped as the pain faded, and when Kyalira pulled her hands away, his leg was whole. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She moved to the next warrior, then the next. One by one, she healed them. Broken ribs, torn muscles, deep lacerations. Each healing came faster, more confident, because she was learning, understanding her power. By the time she reached the last warrior, the one with internal bleeding, Kyalira was exhausted. But she didn't stop. She pressed her hands to his chest and pulled. The damage was extensive. A ruptured spleen bleeding into his abdomen. Without treatment, he'd be dead by nightfall. Kyalira closed her eyes and focused. She could feel the torn tissue, could sense the blood pooling where it shouldn't be. And carefully, so carefully, she repaired it, sealing blood vessels, mending organs, restoring what had been broken. It took everything she had. But when she finally pulled back, the warrior was breathing easily, his color returning. She'd done it. Kyalira stood on shaking legs and turned to face the council. "Is that proof enough?" Silence. Then slowly, Rydian nodded. "It is." The other alphas echoed his agreement, their expressions ranging from respect to awe. But it was Morgaine who spoke next. "You've proven you can heal, but can you fight?" Kyalira's blood ran cold. "What?" "A queen must be able to defend herself, defend her king, defend her people." Morgaine's smile was sharp. "Show us you're not just a healer. Show us you're a warrior." Draven stepped forward. "That's enough. She's proven—" "I'll do it," Kyalira interrupted. Draven spun to face her. "Kyalira, no. I have to." She met his eyes. "They'll never fully accept me unless I prove I'm more than just a healer. You know that." His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue, because she was right. Morgaine gestured and 3 warriors stepped forward, the same masked fighters from the trial. "Defeat them," Morgaine said simply. "And we'll recognize you as Alpha Queen. Fail, and—" She shrugged. "We'll reconsider your position." Kyalira's hands clenched into fists, but she stepped into the circle. The first warrior attacked immediately, his blade flashing toward her throat. Kyalira dodged on instinct, but she was too slow. The blade caught her shoulder, drawing blood. Pain flared, but the bond pulsed in response. And suddenly, Kyalira could feel Draven's combat instincts flowing through her, not controlling her, just guiding her. She moved. The second warrior came at her from behind, but she was already turning, her hand catching his wrist and twisting. He stumbled, and she used his momentum to throw him to the ground. The third warrior hesitated, reassessing. Kyalira didn't give him the chance. She lunged forward, her movements a blur. She wasn't as strong as them, wasn't as trained, but she was faster now, and the bond gave her an edge they couldn't match. She fought like someone with nothing to lose. Brutal, desperate, unstoppable. And when the third warrior finally yielded, Kyalira stood in the center of the circle, bloodied but unbroken. The arena erupted, not in jeers or mockery, in applause, because they'd seen it, seen her transform from a frightened healer into something fierce, something worthy. Rydian stood, his voice carrying across the arena. "The Council recognizes Kyalira as Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories. Let any who question her authority face her in combat." No one stepped forward. Kyalira's legs trembled, threatening to give out. But Draven was there, catching her, his arms wrapping around her as the crowd continued to cheer. "You did it!" he whispered fiercely. "You actually did it!" Kyalira laughed, exhausted, exhilarated, overwhelmed. "I can't believe that worked." "I can." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "You're incredible." "I'm terrified." "So am I." His smile was soft. "But we'll figure it out. Together." That night, under the full moon, they completed the bond. It wasn't the elaborate ceremony Kyalira had imagined. No grand ritual, no witnesses, just the two of them, alone in the highest tower of the fortress, with the moon casting silver light over everything. Draven took her hands, his eyes steady. "Are you sure about this? Once it's done, there's no going back." "I'm sure." Kyalira's voice was calm, certain. "I choose this. I choose you. And I choose you." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "For better or worse. For everything. The bond flared between them, and Draven pulled her close. When he kissed her, it wasn't desperate or frantic. It was slow, deep, a promise written in touch and breath. And as they came together, the bond completed itself. Energy exploded through them, bright and fierce and overwhelming. Kalira felt herself merging with Draven, their souls intertwining until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. She felt his strength, his loneliness, his fierce protectiveness, and he felt her compassion, her determination, her absolute refusal to give up. And together, they became something new. When it was over, when the light finally faded, Kailara lay in Draven's arms and felt the bond settle into place. Solid, unbreakable, perfect. "How do you feel?" Draven asked softly. "Complete." She looked up at him and smiled. "Like I finally found where I belong. With me. With you." He kissed her forehead, pulling her closer. And for the first time in her life, Kailara felt safe. The next morning, Kailara woke to find a letter waiting for her. It was from Mira. Her hand shook as she opened it, scanning the familiar handwriting. "Kailara, I heard what happened, that you bonded with the Alpha King, that you became queen. I can't believe it. My sister, a queen. The village is in chaos. Torvak tried to claim he knew you'd be great all along. No one believes him. And the women you saved, by refusing to participate in the claiming, they're talking about rebellion, about changing the laws. You started something, Kay. Something bigger than any of us realized. I'm proud of you, and I miss you. Come visit when you can. Love, Mira." Kailira's eyes stung, because she'd been so focused on survival, on the bond, on becoming queen, that she'd almost forgotten. She'd left people behind, people who mattered. "What is it?" Draven asked, sitting up beside her. "A letter from my sister." Kailira showed him the parchment. "She says the village is changing because of what I did." Draven read the letter, his expression thoughtful. "Do you want to go back? Visit them?" Kailira hesitated. "I don't know. Part of me wants to, but part of me is afraid." "Of what?" "That they'll see me differently now. That I won't fit anymore." Draven's hand found hers. "You don't have to fit. You're a queen now. You get to decide what that means." The words settled something in her chest, because he was right. She wasn't the same frightened healer who'd fled into the forest. She'd changed, grown, become someone new. "I want to go back," she said finally, "but not to fit in, to show them what's possible, to prove that you don't have to accept the life others choose for you." Draven smiled, proud and fierce. "Then we'll go, together." 3 weeks later, Kailira and Draven rode into her old village. The change was immediate. People stopped in the streets, staring, whispering, because the Alpha King himself was here. And beside him rode Kailira, no longer a healer, but a queen. Torvak stood in the square, his face pale. "My lady, my queen, we didn't expect—" "I'm not here for you," Kailira said calmly. "I'm here for them." She gestured to the women gathered at the edge of the square, the ones who'd been forced into the claiming, the ones who'd suffered under laws they hadn't chosen. Kailira dismounted, walking toward them. They shrank back at first, uncertain, but she kept moving until she stood in their center. "I was one of you," she said quietly. "I know what it's like to be afraid, to feel powerless, to think there's no way out." The women listened, their eyes wide. "But I'm here to tell you there is a way out. You don't have to accept the life others choose for you. You can choose for yourself." Kailira's voice strengthened. "I did, and look where it got me." "You became queen," one woman whispered. "I became free," Kailira corrected. The queen part was just a bonus. Laughter rippled through the group, tentative at first, then stronger. "The Alpha King and I are changing the laws in the Northern Territories," Kailira continued. "No more forced claimings. No more treating women like property. From now on, bonds are formed by choice, always." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Torvak stepped forward, his face red. "You can't. That's not how things are done. It is now." Draven's voice cut through the protest like a blade. "And anyone who doesn't like it can take it up with me personally." Torvak paled and stepped back. Kailira turned to her old neighbors, her old community, and smiled. "You have a choice now, all of you. What you do with it is up to you." That evening, Mira threw herself into Kailira's arms, crying and laughing all at once. I can't believe you're really here. I can't believe any of this is real. Kalira held her sister tight. It's real, all of it. You're a queen. I'm still your sister first. Mira pulled back, studying her face. You look different, stronger. I feel different. Kalira smiled, but in a good way. They spent hours talking about the bond, the transformation, the trial, everything. And when Mira finally fell asleep, exhausted and happy, Kalira stood at the window and looked out at the village. It was changing. She could feel it. The fear was lifting. Hope was taking root, because she'd shown them it was possible. Draven's arms wrapped around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. Ready to go home? Home, Kalira repeated, testing the word. I like the sound of that. Good, because I'm not letting you go anywhere else. She turned in his arms, her hands coming up to frame his face. I love you. The words came easily, naturally, because they were true. Draven's expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. I love you too. My queen. My mate. My everything. And when he kissed her, Kalira felt the bond hum with contentment, because she'd found it. The thing she'd been searching for her entire life without even knowing it. Home. Not a place, but a person. And together they would build something new, something better. A kingdom where compassion mattered as much as strength. Where choice mattered as much as tradition. Where love, real chosen, fierce love, could change everything. Kalira had started as a defiant village healer, hiding in the forest to protect her sister, and she'd become an alpha queen who would reshape the world. Not through force, not through fear, but through the simple, radical act of choosing love over obedience, compassion over cruelty, connection over control. And as she stood in Draven's arms, the bond thrumming between them like a second heartbeat, Kalira knew one thing with absolute certainty. She'd made the right choice, every single time. 6 months later, the fortress had become something Kalira never imagined it could be. A home. She stood on the balcony of the throne room, watching the sun set over the northern territories, and marveled at how much had changed. The fortress walls no longer felt like a prison. The warriors who once watched her with suspicion now bowed with genuine respect. And the people who'd questioned her right to stand beside Draven now came to her for counsel, for healing, for hope. The laws had changed first. Draven had issued a decree that echoed across all the territories. No more forced bonds, no more claiming ceremonies that treated women like livestock. Every union had to be chosen, willing, free. The reaction had been explosive. Half the noble houses had protested. 3 lesser alphas had threatened rebellion. And for a tense month it seemed like the kingdom might fracture. But Kalira had stood beside Draven through every challenge, every confrontation, and slowly, impossibly, the resistance crumbled. Because they couldn't argue with results. The territories under the new laws were thriving. Crime had dropped. Productivity had increased. And perhaps most tellingly, there were fewer uprisings, fewer conflicts within families. Turns out people fought harder for things they chose than for things forced upon them. You're thinking too loud. Draven's voice came from behind her. Kalira smiled without turning. Just remembering. Us good memories or bad? Both. She finally turned to face him, but mostly good. Draven crossed to her, his movements as fluid and powerful as ever. But there was something softer in his eyes now, something that hadn't been there when they first met. Peace. The council wants to throw you a coronation, he said, wrapping his arms around her waist. They already recognize me as queen. They want to make it official, ceremonial, something the whole kingdom can witness. His lips curved. Apparently you've become quite popular. Kalira laughed. Popular? They were ready to execute me 6 months ago. That was before you started healing entire villages, before you negotiated peace with the Western territories, before you... He paused, his expression turning serious. Before you showed them what real strength looks like. I just did what felt right. Exactly. His hand came up to cup her face. That's what makes you extraordinary. You don't think about power or politics. You think about people. Kalira leaned into his touch, feeling the bond hum between them. It had settled now, comfortable and constant. She could still feel Draven's emotions, his presence, but it no longer overwhelmed her. Instead, it anchored her, reminded her she was never alone. There's something else, Draven said quietly. A letter arrived today. From Virel. Kalira's stomach tightened. What did she want? to apologize. He pulled a folded parchment from his pocket. She says exile has given her time to think, to realize what she'd become. She's asking for forgiveness. Are you going to give it to her? Draven was silent for a moment. I don't know. Part of me wants to, but another part remembers you bleeding on the floor, dying because of her. Kalira took the letter, scanning the words. Varel's handwriting was precise, controlled, but the message itself was raw. Honest. She spoke of regret, of understanding what she'd lost, of wishing she could undo the damage she'd caused. She's changed, Kalira said softly, or she's learned to lie better. Maybe. But Kalira looked up at him. I think we should give her a chance. Not to return to court, not to regain her old position, but to prove she's learned from her mistakes. Draven studied her, something like wonder in his expression. You're willing to forgive the woman who tried to kill you? I'm willing to give her the same chance I got. Kalira's voice was steady, the chance to choose differently, to become something better. For a long moment, Draven just looked at her. Then he pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. You're going to change the world, he whispered. We're going to change it, she corrected, together. The coronation was held under the full moon in the same arena where Kalira had faced the trial. But this time, instead of fear and judgment, there was celebration. Thousands had gathered, not just from the fortress, but from villages across the territories. They lined the walls, filled the stands, packed every available space. And when Kalira stepped into the circle, dressed in silver and white, a roar of approval shook the stones. She walked alone at first, her spine straight, her head high. But halfway across the arena, Draven joined her, taking her hand. They crossed together, as they always would. Rydian stood at the center, his expression solemn but not unkind. In his hands, he held a crown, delicate silver worked into the shape of winter branches, embedded with stones that caught the moonlight like stars. Kalira of the Northern Territories, he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. You have proven yourself through trial, through sacrifice, through strength of will and heart. Do you accept the responsibilities of an Alpha Queen? To lead, to protect, to serve your people above all else? Kalira's voice rang out clear and strong. I do. Then by the authority of the Alpha Council, by the will of the people, and by the bond you share with our king, Rydian placed the crown on her head. I name you Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories. May your reign be long and just. The crowd erupted, but it was Draven's expression that mattered most. He looked at her like she'd hung the moon, like she was the most precious thing in his world, and through the bond she felt the depth of his pride, his love, his absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Later that night, after the celebrations had died down, Kalira found herself back in their chambers. The crown sat on the dresser, glinting in the firelight. She touched it gently, still half convinced this was all a dream. Regrets? Draven asked from the doorway. Not even one. She turned to face him. Though I never imagined my life would turn out like this. Neither did I. He crossed to her, his hands settling on her hips. I thought I'd rule alone. Die alone. That was the price of power. And now? Now I have you, and everything else seems small in comparison. Kalira's throat tightened. I love you. You know that, right? I know. His smile was soft, genuine, and I love you more than I thought possible. They stood there in the firelight, the bond wrapping around them like a blanket, and Kalira thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a terrified healer fleeing into the forest to a queen standing before thousands. From hiding her power to wielding it openly. From isolation to connection. From fear to love, it had been brutal, terrifying, impossible, and absolutely worth it. Because she'd learned something that no trial could teach, no council could decree, no tradition could deny. True strength wasn't about power or dominance or control. True strength was about choosing love when hate was easier. Choosing compassion when cruelty was expected. Choosing connection when isolation felt safer. And those choices, small, daily, constant, were what changed the world. Draven pulled her close, and Kalira let herself sink into his embrace. Tomorrow, they'd face new challenges, new threats, new obstacles. But tonight, they were just two people who'd found each other in the darkness and refused to let go. Two people who'd rewritten their fate through sheer force of will. Two people who'd proven that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is choose love and build everything else from there.